My apartment sat right above the Sunset Strip. I was literally right above this thing called Tattoo Mania. And I already had a tattoo. And so I started hanging out in this tattoo shop. One night, this guy named Jonathan Shaw came in from New York, who I think he had Tattoo Magazine at the time. And he was rolling with this young guy. All the guys went in the back room and, you know, who knows what they were doing back there. But me and this dude were sitting, just hanging out, like way after hours. It's probably 3 o'clock in the morning or something. So I started talking to this guy. You know, come to find out, I'm talking to Johnny Depp. He and I we just hit it off. This is right when he was starting to open up the Viper Room. So I got to really follow that process with him of seeing opening a bar from the ground up, from painting the building to seeing the inside come to life to the opening night. I got to really witness that whole thing. That was magical, just being around that.
Jason Hollis, welcome to the podcast.
Hey man, Ed Clay, legend.
Oh man, thanks. Nice to finally meet you. I've heard a lot about you.
I'm here. Let's go.
Oh, welcome. Yeah. So we just met, and I already like you.
Thank you.
I'm like, okay, this guy's cool.
We both have white shirts on.
There we go.
We have long hair.
We do. We do. I heard you were coming, so I didn't cut my hair for a couple months. You know.
Yeah. Same.
Grew it out. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I mean, you know, I know a little bit about your story. I want to learn more. Talk about where you're from originally and kind of how you got to Nashville.
It's wild, man. It's a rare, like I have a rare story, you know, like I was fortunate to grow up in the music business. So my parents owned a chain of music stores throughout the South called Ziegler Music. We had stores in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, West Monroe, Metairie, downtown New Orleans, etc. They pretty much had the entire southern area covered when it came to like musical instrument stores. So I grew up in that, just around everybody from Allan Toussaint to Professor Longhair, Dr. John, to everybody. And what was wild was, you know, everyone came through our store to buy guitar strings, drum heads, anything that they needed to go on tour. We were the local guys that just supplied everybody. So by the time I was in middle school, man, I'd already been hanging out with like Chuck Berry and Ray Charles and, like I said, Allan Toussaint, Dr. John. So you remember Herman Jackson? I'm sorry, Randy Jackson from American Idol.
Yes.
So the first 10 seasons American Idol. So Randy used to teach bass at my parents' music store. His brother, Herman Jackson, taught all the way up until my parents sold the music store, which is 4 years ago now. So being around those guys when I was young, you know, they played with everybody. Like anybody that was in town, anybody that was touring, those guys were playing with them. So at a young age, I really kind of got, you know, brought in as the kid with 2 Ds, KIDD, was kind of like deemed at an early age. And I just got to go around and do lots and lots of cool things, man. Through middle school and then into high school, I knew that I probably was never going to go to college, that my life was music. Back then, when I was moving into my senior year, which is 1991, I graduated in 92. I'm dyslexic, so the math might be off. I don't know. I don't know when you start and, you know, how that works. But I think moving into my senior year, I was pretty dead set, like, man, not gonna be an accountant. Number one, I'm severely dyslexic. Didn't even know I couldn't read until probably like the fourth grade. I know that because they held me back and they were like, he can't read. I was very good at being able to watch the teacher's lips and kind of watch the words coming out of the mouth and really absorb that. So memorizing stuff. Up until the fourth grade when you had to start taking like written tests, you know, and they were like, you can't even spell your name. So for me, moving into like a college or like thinking like, I'm not going to be a doctor. Like I've been around music my whole life. I'm a music guy. So I set out my senior year to pursue music. And it was interesting, man, because I didn't know like the law of attraction or anything back then. And I think that, being an only child, you have a lot of time on your hands to think and to visualize and to not be interrupted, whether you're playing with Legos or whatever, like, So my senior year, I began visualizing like everything. I bought a map. I drew out like the route from Baton Rouge, Louisiana to Los Angeles. I started putting pictures of people on this map that I wanted to meet. I kind of like dialed into where I wanted to live, the area, like on the Sunset Strip, next to like the Whiskey a Go-Go. And I just started manifesting that shit, man, hard. And working in the music store, I had a great job. In my senior year in high school, I was making more money than I could have possibly made, probably more money in a year than I made for the next 10 years past leaving, to go to Los Angeles and really start, getting into my career. 'Cause, you have to put the 10,000 hours of free time. But my senior year, I just worked my ass off, made a bunch of money, saved all my money, and kind of put money into my move. And the day after I graduated high school, I got into a U-Haul truck with my dad, and we drove across country. And I moved to Larrabee and Sunset, right next to the Whiskey a Go-Go on the Sunset Strip. And that's kind of where I started my career. And it's been a wild ride since then, man.
Well, so when you went there, what was your career? What was the focus when you moved to
I had
California?
zero idea. All I knew is I wanted to be in the music business.
Yep.
And
you play instruments?
I do, yeah. A little bit of everything. Moving further on into the story, like my job has been a producer,
right?
Kind of putting things together. But I started being a drummer, and when I went out to LA, I sat down with my pops, and I was like, I want to make records, and all we knew was Randy Jackson, and just we didn't know anybody. So my pops was like, I don't know what to tell you. We sell music instruments. We don't make records. And so I knew then, like I was setting out, like I was going out on my own, for the first time, like really kind of going out, venturing off the Richter scale of what we were used to and what my parents had contacts with. And so the adventure began in 1992, really, for me. I mean, the adventures in Baton Rouge were unbelievable, man. Like the people that I met and got to hang out with at such an early age that kind of really shaped my love for music and my appreciation for the art. In 92, like a whole new chapter really began for me, and it got wild.
Yeah, I mean, so and how old were you when you went out there?
Man, I think it was 17.
17, 8, golly. Yeah, so that's kind of a culture shock too.
Yeah, I never even like did my own laundry, So like I had a studio apartment, in Hollywood, in West Hollywood, really, and you just kind of dive in really quick, and you start the growing up process. Now, for me, that growing up process didn't really start for another couple years, because when I got out there, I was just like, let's go.
What was your first job when you went out there?
Well, I moved out there, and I had some connections from being in retail for a long time. I had connections with the Guitar Center. So I had a job at the Guitar Center in Sherman Oaks, and I went out there, and like, man, it was so crazy. Like within like the first couple of months, I was like the top grossing seller in the store. And I just think it was just because, it was just natural ability. And I really didn't go out to LA with a plan other than I want to be in the music business. And therefore I was competing with guys that moved to LA and they were like, I want to be a rock star. I want to be a guitar player. I want to, these are my jobs. So I went in and I just slayed Guitar Center, and I was there for about six months or so. And my apartment sat right above right above the Sunset Strip, right? So it was like, I was literally right above this thing called Tattoo Mania, and I already had a tattoo. And so I started hanging out in this tattoo shop, and it was run by a group of like Hell's Angel guys.
Interesting.
And man, there was something about that energy that it couldn't keep me away, So I had no friends, I had no family. So I'd go down to the tattoo shop every night and just kind of hang out. And so one night these guys called me and they're like, "Hey, you wanna come be our shop guy?" I was like, "What does that mean?" They were like, you mop and collect money and go sell some tattoos. And I was, yeah. So I quit my job at Guitar Center and went down. And, I believe that at that point, that's when my education in life really began. Because when you're around those types of dudes, you start to learn respect and loyalty and honor and word very quickly. Otherwise, you end up in a trash can somewhere. So for me, moving down and going into like the tattoo shop and working for these guys was just something that I'd never really experienced ever. Opened this whole new like world to me. I tell you this funny story, man. The first time I ever met the owner of the shop, this guy named Gil the Drill Monty. He's a famous tattoo artist, gnarly, badass, like just rock star. I'd heard about Gil. I knew that Gil owned the shop because it clearly said Gil Monty's Tattoo Mania on the wall, on the neon signs. And he came in one night. And he was kind of feeling me out, like, this is my station. This is how things go. And this is like, I like things done like this. And at one point, I hear him yell the words "Yum Yum Boy," and I fucking knew. I was like, he's talking about me. And I was like, shit. And I was like, coming. So I went into the bathroom, and he's pointing out to me like the toilet paper rolls, right? And the paper towel rolls in the bathroom. He's like, look at that. Do you know what's wrong with this? I was like, no, man, what's wrong with it? And he began like reciting the, what do you call it when you get the trademark, the patent, the patent for toilet paper and paper towels, same guy, right? But the patent, it goes over the top.
Yeah.
So when you tear it, it rips. If it goes behind it, you pull it and it rolls down, right? Explain that to me. And I'd never heard that. I was like, oh, wow, that's great. And then he looked at me and said, you ever fucking do that again, I'll kill you.
Oh, shit.
And to this day, man, like every paper towel and every toilet paper
perfect.
It's what's over the top because that's what the patent says. It was wild, man, because through those guys, just like kind of growing up in Baton Rouge with my parents in the music store, and all the people I met through them, I was kind of transported back into that same position, right? Being 18 in Hollywood, hanging out with those guys, meeting rebels and rock stars, like legit, because everybody came in to get tattooed there. They had all the famous guys. And it was one night, this guy named Jonathan Shaw came in from New York, who I think he had Tattoo Magazine at the time. He came in and he was rolling with this young guy. And all the guys went in the back room, and who knows what they were doing back there. But me and this dude were sitting out, just hanging out, like way after hours. It's probably 3:00 in the morning or something. So I started talking to this guy, and at the time I was watching. I had a VHS player in my apartment, and I had like Caddyshack, and I had Edward Scissorhands, and I had something else, right? And I'd watch those every night because that's all I had. Like, I didn't have TV or no cable, and so I was talking to this guy about like Caddyshack and then Edward Scissorhands, and come to find out, I'm talking to Johnny Depp, and he's kind of like shrugging it off, and so I meet him again the next day, and he and I just hit it off. He's like a bigger brother. Like, I think he just saw like the younger, naive version of himself, because we're 10 years, almost exactly 10 years apart. And this is right when he was starting to open up the Viper Room. And so I got to like kind of like really follow that process with him of seeing, opening a bar from the ground up, all from painting the building to seeing the inside come to life to the opening night. I got to really witness that whole thing. And that was magical. It was magical, man. Like being around that.
Yeah. So you were, 19 or so?
At that point, 18.
18.
Just 18.
And you met Johnny Depp. That's pretty cool. And he was just getting ready to open the Viper. Did he like take you in and show you what was going on with it? Or like,
I saw the whole thing.
Wow.
I mean, from the time they painted the outside of the building black with the green little slits and trims to putting the sign out there, I saw the whole thing. I was there opening night. Johnny brought me this pass, and it said, it was like, I forgot what it said. It was something, world access or something extravagant with the Viper Room logo. And I got to know the outside bouncer, Big Ed, and I would go through the side door. And so opening night was wild, man, because it was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Every single person that you could ever imagine in Hollywood was there. Michael Jackson came in with Elizabeth Taylor.
Wow.
So it was like, I immediately like upped my game into being around just greatness, surrounded by greatness. And I think that's kind of been the trajectory of my life, is just kind of like putting myself in positions, or being vulnerable enough to allow myself to be in positions where I'm just around greatness. And you absorb so much when you're around a lot of like energy like that. Well, yeah, it's not always positive,
right?
But
you can learn from that too. Yeah, and you are who you surround yourself with.
I fully believe that, man. I'm a manifestation, visualization kind of guy. I'm, the 5 people that you're around. I'm that guy. Like I am. I've always been that guy. I just think it's wild. Like, I haven't really thought about this since we're like literally having this conversation, but it's wild, like, to think back at that and go like, man, the first quarter of my life was really mental. Like really just seeing things that most people don't comprehend and would never be able to experience.
Like,
but then the second half, even like the second quarter of it was even crazier.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like when you're around those type of people, I've had some similar experiences growing up. You take it in, and for me, I'm trying to learn. Like, okay, what are they doing that makes them successful, or what's their way of being that is appealing, and then the same thing too is when they have some character flaws, which we all have them. Saying, okay, well, maybe this part's great, but I don't want to do that. And I can only imagine being, at the Viper Room the very first night, and around those people, and then, you're 18 years old. growing up from there around that, all the different lessons that you learned?
A lot. Not all great,
Sure.
but I think there was this guy that I lived next door to. His name was Tony Zetlin. And Tony was like this, he was a legend, man. Fucking Tony Zetlin. He worked, he was with Capitol Records, and he worked on like the marketing side. It's like one of the heads of marketing. And he came over with Pink Floyd from the UK. And he worked with the Beatles and Journey and all these great bands, man. And I just remember Tony, he lived right above me. So I'd go hang out with Tony all the time. He's an older guy at the level of retirement, basically, getting ready to wrap up his Hollywood career and move back to the countryside of somewhere, London or somewhere out in the country. I don't know. But Tony had this phenomenal collection of rock and roll memorabilia. And when I'm talking phenomenal, I'm talking about like mother plates from Beatles recordings, like master plates, like there's one master plate, right? Mm-hmm. And then the A's and the B's get printed off of that master, and that master's retired. They bring in a second edition master. He had master copies of like Please Please Me and I Want to Hold Your Hand. And like shit that you just will never see. Most people will never see ever, right? And we would talk about rock and roll stuff, and I'd go up to his place and we would watch. He'd have me like watch the history of the history of like the British music invasion, part 1 through 4, and we would watch it intently, smoking weed and doing bumps and probably drinking wine or something, and just focused on watching this history. And then he would quiz me on this stuff. And I learned so much through hanging out with that guy. And I remember one day, like, we came back to his place and we were hanging out, and he was like, I got to tell you one thing. He said, don't take this personal. He said, but I need you to hear me. And I was like, all right. He said, you need to shut the fuck up and start listening to everything that everybody says that's around you. He's like, that's the one thing that I've picked up. He's like, you start to talk. He said, you're a talker. He's like, shut the fuck up and start listening. And I really took that to heart, man. Because I looked up to him. Yeah. He was a role model, And I think at that point, like, that's when I just started really becoming kind of quiet. And I'm not a quiet guy. But taking it all in.
Sure.
Learning to absorb, not only the frequencies, but also the energies that you were surrounded by. Also, right during that time period, this is right before I left California to move to Nashville. I was in the Viper Room one night, and Johnny Depp, his band P, was playing, and it was like an all-star band. It was like Gibby Clark from the Butthole Surfers, and Flea was on bass. I don't know who was playing drums, probably Chad Smith, and then Johnny Depp. And I was at the back door standing next to Big Ed, and I got shoved hard into Ed, and I turned around and I looked, so I'm at the back door, and I see a guy walk out onto the sidewalk and fall down, and then people rushed out. And it was later that evening, around 3 o'clock in the morning, like I was talking to Johnny, and he was like, man, that was River Phoenix.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, what? He was like, man, River, he died. And I was just like, oh, dude. I mean, clearly I went home and called everybody I knew and was like, by the time you wake up, like, this is going to be on the news everywhere. I was a fucking prick. I can't believe I did that. But that was even new,
Yeah.
I mean, man, like I was deemed a kid at being from a child's age, right? And I still, like, at 50 years old right now, I still feel like a big kid because I still feel like there's so much to learn. And in that moment, I just remember feeling like extremely vulnerable and just being like a kid, like a total child. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's like, I've met him. He was in here last night and he's dead.
Yeah.
And I've never really experienced anything like that until that moment. And that's when I decided to leave LA.
Okay.
Shortly after that.
And so you actually moved back here, right?
I moved here. So I never lived in Nashville prior to that. It was Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to LA. And when I moved here, I was, I don't remember. I think I was like 21 or 22. I can't do the math, but probably 22. But for me, it was like, I was still on that hunt of, I want to be in the music business. I want to make records.
So what did you do when you came to Nashville then?
Well, first of all, I had to go find an apartment. So I drove out here and kind of looked around, and this is like pre-cell phone. Kind of shows you my age, but it's pre-cell phone, pre-anything really. So you had to drive around, you had to look for signs. I knew where I wanted to live. Just like LA, I'd done my research. I knew I wanted to live really close to Music Row, so I could either walk there, ride a bicycle there, or drive there really quickly. Get there fast. If anybody said, hey, I need you, boom, I'm there. So I started looking in Midtown. And in fact, the first apartment that I ever had it's still standing. It's like one of the two apartments still standing in Midtown. So it's the corner of 19th, Lyle and Broadway. So it's catty corner from the Velvet Taco.
Yep.
So
those little apartments right there?
Yeah, those little, no, not the tall one, the janky little.
Yeah, the janky ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was my first apartment.
Oh, but I had a buddy that lived in there. I spent a lot of time hanging out in those apartments.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe we met each other.
I don't know. Yeah. Might have been back there. This is more recent, though. This is like 10 years ago.
Yeah. No, it was gone.
Great location.
Great.
Yeah.
And that's all so it was kind of like one of those things. You come out, you start looking for rent signs.
Yeah.
And then you go back to the hotel, you call the person, you page them, or you leave them I think back then it was like the voice, like somebody would pick up and.
Or you had a beeper.
Yeah, the pager, yeah. So I remember I went back to the hotel and I had a flashing light, and the guy was like, well, I'm assuming that you're in an apartment, come meet me, or like in a hotel, come meet me.
Yeah.
So I got my place, and I actually don't remember how it all happened, but I think it was like I started meeting with like different music industry temp companies, and getting placed on temporary jobs. Like it's like one was like, you go and you stuff flyers or you stuff envelopes, right? For a party or for a banquet or for an invite or whatever it is. And I did a great job, and I became very friendly with the people that were staffing me out. And so I was like a priority kind of guy. And they got me into the mailroom at MCA Deca. And I think that's where like everything kind of changed for me here. Because it was Tony Brown, it was Scott Borchetta, two massive legends, Mark Wright, legend, Frank Liddell, fucking legend, and Travis Hill, one of our great songwriters. They kind of ran that company, and
so that was MCA.
It was MCA Deca.
Deca, okay.
Yeah. And so I was doing that, and then working the mailroom, getting to know everybody. And I was quite a personality back then, I guess. I had a big pompadour, and I played in this band called Tabasco Cat, which was like, I think like 95 era. So we'd be busking on 2nd Avenue. I'd go work MCA Decca. I'd get cut by like 2 o'clock. We'd be busking by 3 to 6 and kind of working 2nd Avenue up to Lower Broad.
Yeah.
And I remember one day, what was it? Henry Yankovics, or I think Henry Yankovics, whatever. He was the guy that owned Gibson guitars.
Okay.
He had he built a coffee shop called Henry's Coffee on like lower 2nd Avenue. And he was walking to work one day and he saw us busking. We had like a little audience. We had some money in our guitar case and stuff. So he offered us a gig, and that was our parlay onto the 2nd Avenue track.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like, the Broadway track. This is before Broadway was Broadway, man. This is PR 549 days, right?
Yeah.
So we're working up 2nd Avenue, and we get to this spot, Legends Corner, which is the corner of 5th and Broadway. It's still there. We had a residency in there. So it was BR 549 at Roberts, us at Legends, and then a band called the Legendary Shack Shakers at Wolfie's across the street. And it was just all prostitutes and drug dealers and the occasional tourists that would come down there and hang out. It's fucking rad, man. Such a great time. So me being kind of in charge of the band at that time, with my other buddy Warren Ling, who I still work with now, we comprised this crazy marketing scheme, right? Because we were into postering and flyering. And we had some rivalries where we'd put posters over posters. And then when Kinko's came out with the big poster size things, we were doing like giant posters over things. And so we did this one thing where it was, we got up one morning, we went to McDonald's. We had a map that we had put on that foam board that you could put stick pins in.
The McDonald's on Broadway?
It was the McDonald's on Broadway,
Okay,
yes. And then we went to the homeless shelter.
Okay.
McDonald's at 4 a.m. We got biscuits and coffee and all kinds of stuff. Went to the homeless shelter. We had like a little pop-up table, and we had an easel with a map, and we had a box of T-shirts that said Tabasco Cat on it. And then we had our McDonald's shit set up on the table. Because they let the people out at like 4. You got to get out of the homeless shelter at like 4 o'clock or 4:30 or something like that, right? So they all come rushing out. We're like, hey, come over. Like coffee, biscuits. I was like, listen, here's a map of where we are. We want to do a marketing campaign. We got T-shirts here. Anybody that wants to grab a T-shirt, this is where we need people. And everybody did it. And so by the time rush hour had happened and people are rolling off the 65 going to like the Music Row area, we had people everywhere in the city with Tabasco Cat T-shirts on. And to the point where like the Tennessean picked it up. I think it was like In Review. There's a bunch of those local magazines picked up, but Tennessean picked it up. The Nightly News picked it up. And it was like this whole thing, and it worked. And so I was in the mail room at MCA like the next day, and Tony Brown, they had cameras out. You could see when like the bosses were pulling up. He's like Range Rover pulled up, and you saw it kind of like the hydraulics lower, gets out, he walks in, and he came up to him and he's like, hey, do you have anything to do with that? I was like, I did. And he was like, all right, cool. Come on with me. So we went up to his office, and that's when I started working in A&R and like got into like the production side of things. And, that was really kind of my bag. That's what I wanted to do. Past that, we got to like, I got to sit in on like George Jones sessions and Vince Gill sessions and like early Mavericks and everything. And, at that point in my life, I was interning during the day for nothing, $6 an hour maybe. busking, and then go into the studio and working from 7 or 6 p.m.
Was that with the Tabasco Cats?
This was like this was during that time.
I'm saying when you were in the studio, were you working with Tabasco?
Oh no, I was starting to make records at that point.
Oh, cool.
I went in and we made a record with Tabasco Cat guys under MCA Decca.
Oh, cool.
And I think at that point in the band, I realized, like, look, I'm only so good at this instrument, right? But I'm really good over here.
Mm-hmm.
So, that making that record with those guys, it was a phenomenal experience. And then my whole kind of like upcoming with them of what we had to do to go and hustle Nashville to really kind of build a big band that was notable, that got a record deal. It was ingrained. But past that, I knew that I was kind of at my limit as far as being a musician, even a writer, with what I wanted to do. My responsibility lied on the other side of the glass, which was finding the talent, developing the talent, getting them put with the right companies or the right people. And
so really, how did that go? So that was late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, way early 90s. So 95, 96, 97.
Yeah. So Nashville is, just to give people a picture, because they see Nashville what it is now, but back then, as you were saying, Broadway was filled with a lot of prostitutes. It wasn't the tourist destination that it is now. People would hang out on 2nd Avenue. That was more of the popular street that wasn't, had a lot more people. Music Row, actually, Demumbrian, there was no tin roof. There were no bars and restaurants. There was no roundabout. Well, there was a roundabout, but there wasn't a statue there.
The roundabout came a bit later.
Yeah, actually did.
For
like
sure.
2000.
It was later 90s for sure. But man, that god awful statue. I drive by there almost every day, and I'm just saying, the fuck were they thinking, man?
Yeah, Musica. Who even knows? We started Dan McGinnis, which was the Irish pub there on the corner.
Yeah.
So we were the second bar there. Tin Roof was the first. We were the second. And it's what, but people now see all the things.
Yeah.
But back then, I mean, what I love about hearing your story, coming to Nashville was, you worked your way kind of in, and you were to build relationships.
Up and in.
Yeah, up and in.
Because you started on 2nd Avenue.
Yeah.
Like, if you wanted to get noticed, you had to busk. You had to go out there and entertain and get people around you and throwing money into your guitar case, and that's how you got noticed to be able to move into some of the bars on Broadway.
Yeah, I don't even know what it's like now. Now the artists are just, I mean, you still have to hustle. Actually, man, definitely still have to hustle, but it's a different type of thing. And yeah, I liked that aspect of it because when you were really good word, because it was basically a big town. Nashville, I wouldn't even consider, maybe it was a city, but it's a very small city.
Big town.
And, so when you had someone that was
manageable,
hardworking, talented, people like to give people opportunities.
Yeah.
Now in a way there's a lot more competition, but it's not I wouldn't say, some of it's good competition, but it's not the same type of competition back, in the day where, it was a community that everybody kind of knew each other, and, you're working hard there. That word's getting out pretty quick.
Yeah.
That was,
I mean, we hung out with, man, I get a lot of shit for coming back here. So much to the point, well, we can talk about that later, but so much to the point where it's like it's just not it's not good. But I remember back in the day, like a guy like Chuck Mead, right? He's a legend in my opinion. When we were busking up Broadway, like BR549 were like, they were rock stars. You'd go in to see a show on I think they played like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday residency at Roberts. And you'd go in there and it was packed and it was all the hot rockabilly girls. Everybody's dancing and it was a fucking hoot, man. And we all supported each other. We all went to the same parties. We all knew the same people. Nobody was shit talking. It was support.
Mm-hmm.
There's rivalries,
Sure,
always, but rivalries are good because if you're a competitor, you need somebody to compete against.
sure.
You want to know, like, oh, they're doing that. Oh, okay. We got to like up the game and we got to go do this.
Yeah.
And but that's what makes you better. It's a whole different world down there now.
Yeah.
So
No, it's pretty wild what the city's kind of turned into, which is, I like some of it. I don't like some of it as well. But what so you were working for the label, you went into A&R. When you say you went into A&R, what did you do like immediately, and how did you kind of build what did you build from there?
Man, what I did for money versus what I did in my free time were two totally different things.
Mm-hmm.
For money, it was like logging phone calls, passing them on to like senior, my Travis Hill was kind of my go-to guy. And then Travis worked for Frank Liddell. Frank Liddell worked for Mark Wright. And then we all worked for Tony Brown. So it kind of goes in that order. So you can kind of imagine, it's nothing glamorous. But once I was done during the day, I would go in with like Joe Hayden and some different guys that were big engineers running like some big sessions, like second engineering or first engineering sessions, Javelina Big Pig, Javelina Little Pig. We were in like RCA Studio B, RCA Studio A, even when we could still go in there and record, like we were recording in there. But that part of my life was all free. I mean, I did 10 years of free work.
Yep.
10.
Well, it's interesting. The people, and I was actually talking to Edward Crow about this.
Yeah, I saw that.
About the free work, man.
Yeah.
And I think it's really beneficial. I've worked for free so much.
Yeah.
And
so it's that 10,000 hour
yeah
thing, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, half of my life, I consider like, I like to think that one half of my life is very strategic and methodical and thinking about doing smart business.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still another half of me that's just a fucking kid. And I want to play. I want to play in the sandbox.
Yeah.
I've just opened this new club here in town, and that's been a whole eye-opening experience for me, for sure. Because now I'm on a different side of the music business. I'm on a side where I'm an owner of a bar that has a stage that brings musicians in, and
yeah,
you look at loss and you have to make these tough decisions, and so you want to have that ability to still be free
mm-hmm.
and play, and when we play, we usually understand that costs us money.
Yeah,
it's either time or it's money that we're paying. If you want to be a golfer, it's time and money
for sure.
But you're hedging your bet on what you love to do and what gives you that freedom of being able to go out. If you're a golfer, go play golf during the day and do all that. That's your payout. That's your loss, right?
Sure.
Versus what you're having to do throughout your days. So there's still those 10,000 hours never go away. I just don't believe it.
No, I mean, I come from a fighting background originally. And one of the things that our team would do, my main instructor was a guy named Lloyd Irvin. And he's in D.C., or actually Camp Springs, Maryland. I spent about 3 months a year out there with him training. And I was his number 2 trainer. He was the main one there. Then of course I had my gym here, but he taught me. I mean, we would do moves. He'd be like, Shai, he's like, you got 5,000 of these. You got to get 5,000 done in the next 7 days. And so we would do a technique 5,000 times in 7 days. 3 months later, let's say, he would go back to that technique you're working on. Shai, 5,000 more. And so we're getting our 10,000 reps in.
Yeah.
You know, and that was kind of the philosophy. It was very systematic with numbers. You do this many times. And Lloyd built out, the best Brazilian jiu-jitsu team, homegrown in America. And learned a lot from that. I really believe that was his whole idea too, was, you got to get hit that 10,000 number in, because it really does take repetition. And, you think about where society is right now, people, it's, instant gratification. It's like, I got to have this now. But like, there is no, I would say there's no secret to success, other than you got to put the work in. And that 10,000 number is right on.
It's so funny, man. I said this, I made this kind of like post on Facebook, and some of my Australian rock star friends like really gave me some shit about it, for name dropping, but I don't give a fuck, man. Like Keith Richards told me one time, he said the greatest thing in life is the ability to continue. And that has stuck with me for forever. And it's like nothing supersedes the ability to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to keep moving forward, whether you're falling flat on your face or you're rising like a rocket. It's like, there's something very spiritual about that, or fucking devilish. I don't know, man. But the ability to continue is like, that's what I strive for that. I strive to keep doing what it is that I love. And, those things kind of pivot and they change throughout, like my moods and where I'm at in life and what I want to do, like anybody. Like, you get bored. I mean, I got bored when I moved from California back to Nashville. I was totally I was done with LA. Well, first of all, let's paint the picture, right? When I left Los Angeles, I was kicking heroin needles off of our front porch from people that were squatting, that you have no right to remove or call the cops to get off of your property because they own wherever it is that they lay down. So I'm taking my child, picking my child up and moving her over heroin needles. California is fucked, man. And I have a lot of friends that still live there. God bless them. But
where were you living at?
I lived all over, but Studio City is where we left
with
from.
The heroin needles. Yeah.
And Hollywood is much worse, and
It's a shithole.
Beverly Hills is a ghost town at this point. You know?
Yeah, Hollywood. I was just there 2 weeks ago. I was staying at the Roosevelt.
I hope you took baths.
Was that?
I hope you took baths before you came back. All right,
inside the walls of the Roosevelt's okay.
It's great.
Listen, it's the outside. It's Hollywood Boulevard that is. It's just awful. I mean, we went out one night, and my girlfriend, she went to a Coldplay concert, and I was just staying. Actually, I went out with some other friends, and I go back to the hotel. I was waiting for her to get there, and we have this little dog. It's her dog, and Sherlock, awesome dog. But I wanted pizza. I was hungry. I'm like, I want some pizza, and so I had a few drinks. Probably wasn't thinking completely straight, and so I take little Sherlock on a leash, and I walked. It was over half a mile to a pizza place down Hollywood Boulevard, though, at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's almost like zombie land.
Yeah, you're seeing some insanity.
Zombie land. I'm lucky I didn't get in any kind of trouble.
It's not the same, man. It's not the same. When I moved, when I went there, when I started going to LA, it was in the mid '80s, and it still had the allure.
Mm-hmm.
It still had the shine. It's lost its shine. that's just it.
Yeah.
It's just lost its shine, man.
Yeah. It's gotten pretty disgusting. I mean, you live there, so you lived through it. I was actually at the Roosevelt the day the world was shutting down as well. I was staying there for
in China,
whatever day that was. Yeah. And there were military on the street.
Yeah.
There were military on the street. There was nobody else. Military on the street. As I picked a bad time to go, obviously with the COVID, but the energy is so much different there too, because it's all about. It's not about giving any individual a right. It's about so much fear and then virtue signaling how we should act and do. And if you don't do that, you're now enemy. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't subscribe to any of that, man. I give a fuck.
Yeah.
I'm not PC. Not gonna be. Born in the 1973, raised in the 80s, and I'm not gonna back down. I'm not gonna change. I'm not. Just not doing it.
What part of COVID did you leave?
So we left. So, funny enough, when you were there, when it kind of shut down, I was in China, and I was kind of stuck in Hong Kong.
Oh man!
When everything went dark, like no flights in or out.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I had about as close to a diplomatic passport, like permit, that you could get. And I got to kind of like move through security.
How'd you
and
pull that one
through
off?
military. It was like the company that I was working with at the time to go over there. They just lined everything up and
nice.
They took care of us within that realm. But it was still scary, because it was military. Not only that, but that's when like Hong Kong was rioting. Remember, like big time, like they were rioting hardcore.
Well, do you remember the propaganda that came out of China?
Oh yeah,
showing the people just falling over and having seizures on the street and all that crap.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, and I got on the plane and was on the last flight out of Hong Kong to back to Los Angeles.
Nice.
And when I got back, I think that sometimes when you make big change, you need that period of almost meditative state.
Mm-hmm.
You need the period of calm, the calm before the storm always, right? So for us, it was getting back to Los Angeles, being with my family, my daughter, then moving to online school, to finishing out school.
Yeah, that's brutal.
To my wife basically having her business shut down because she was an esthetician, very big esthetician in LA. And it was like, boom, it was hairstylists, estheticians, like that industry went first.
Yep.
And so it was us kind of like sitting around. And let me tell you, man, it was fucking great for the first month. I mean, come on, like who didn't enjoy COVID for the first month?
Well, I didn't, but
well,
I had a hospital that was going crazy. But I hear what you're saying. I thought I was going to lose my whole life.
If you're not in a hospital, I'm talking about people that are on the outside world, right? Especially people that live in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Like, woohoo,
I guess I'm
work.
just being selfish at this point.
Sure.
It was great, man. I loved it. Because I got to be with my family every day. And it just felt like the world stopped. Mm-hmm. And you were able to embrace a moment in time that we'll never probably ever experience again.
Yeah.
Like I remember my wife and I, we had this pizza place in Santa Barbara that we love. And we would drive from Studio City to Santa Barbara. It's an 85-minute drive. Usually with traffic, it's about 2 hours. We'd get there in fucking 78 minutes. Pick up a pizza, order 2, eat one in the car, driving back, and have one for later. And it was just because the world was shut down, man. I remember like driving to the 405 and getting on like the busiest point on the 405, and getting out of my car and taking pictures.
You're like, nobody's here.
Yeah. And, like, that's wild. But for me, it was at that moment when you sit there and go like, all right, so if we're going to do anything, now's the time. And so we made a decision. My wife started closing up her shop, shutting it down. And we just took a piece of chalk and we wrote 25 days on the wall. And we erased it every day, and 24 days, 23 days, 22 days. And we just started packing. And we're like, we're fucking gone. 0 days, we're gone. And so we had a plan. It was like that. Again, it was back to like, we needed something to see every day, knowing that we're getting, you better put a plan together, right?
Yeah.
You have 15 days before you're leaving. You got the trailer, you got this, you got hotels, where you're staying, where. And so at that point, when we broke that 25 days, we were like, okay, we're getting out of here. And, the plan was always to come back to Nashville. For many reasons. But putting that plan together in that moment in time really kind of solidified the idea of, all right, we're making this move. Man, let me tell you, anybody that is watching or listening to this podcast that has lived in Los Angeles and has left Los Angeles will understand it's hard to leave. It's hard to move there. It's exceptionally hard to get out. It really is. Number one, financially, it's very expensive. But number two, once you're ingrained in LA, like, I'm not from there. My wife is from Santa Barbara. My daughter was born in Burbank. So they're both California girls, For me, being ingrained in LA and working 16 years plus in that industry, you get sucked in. You get sucked into the system. And one thing, man, is like there's no seasons. 74 degrees every day, right? Every day. So it's almost like that Bill Murray Groundhog Day movie where every day your life is just kind of like it's sunny and it's nice and it's hot. And now I'm going back to do this thing. You go to bed, it's sunny or it's dark, it's hot, it's still 74 degrees. But you do that for 15 years, man, and you start to go a little mental, stir crazy with not understanding change and the movement of like seasons. And then you begin to feel like it's all one long day. And, you're tempted by who you're working with, what project you're working on, how much they're paying you, and where you're going in the world. And if you can get past all that bullshit and start to make a plan, then, I don't know, man, I'm living, a next chapter, which is fucking great.
Well, so when you moved back, did you start the 8th room right away?
Pretty much, yeah.
Was that the plan? You're going to move back and open it
No,
up?
there was no plan.
How did that happen?
The plan was, we had we had a nice little, nest egg, and the plan was we get here and we just kind of see what happens, and take it one day at a time. Moving across the country to a new location where I knew people here. My wife didn't know anybody. My daughter didn't know anybody. So that was our primary kind of goal, was to get acclimated and not be in a rush. I think my wife and I discussed, like, our plan was, we'll never say no. We'll never say no to any kind of invitation. Like, if it's hey, come with us to go to Florida. Okay. Hey, come to a party. All right. Hey, go to this thing. Cool. and we got to know people quickly by doing that. But the eighth room thing came along. So like back in 94, 95, 96, I think, my band Tabasco Cat had played the Douglas Corner. So I knew the Douglas Corner. I knew the history of the Douglas Corner. I'd met Mervyn a bunch of times and Rhonda, the bartender. So I knew the history of that place. I knew, Tony Brown signed Trisha Yearwood on that stage.
Interesting.
Clint Black was signed there. Garth Brooks signed his publishing deal there. Big and Rich were formed there. Kentucky Headhunters were signed there. Cheap Tricks played. Bon Jovi's played. Like everybody's played it.
Mm-hmm.
So that location was in my walking area.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I'd get out every morning. I'd go walk. And I was just watching it. I wonder what they're going to do with the old Douglas Corner. And so I started seeing people go in, and so I would just go in. And I met the realtors and met some of the people that were looking at the space and everything. And I think that one day I just went home and told my wife, we bought a bar. And it's like, man, it could have been really bad.
Could have been. Did you want to? Had y'all talked about it? What was like,
We talked about it a bit, but I think it was just one of those things where it was the time, the place. Music Row was still not active.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's working. Writers are writing. That's it. I was a bit burnt out because I'd just come off of, basically 16 plus years of straight work, like no vacation, straight just work hard. So I think for me, it was looking at like always having that like childhood dream of like, oh man, one day I'm gonna own a bar. But you learn quickly that it's a whole different, it's a business.
Yeah.
And listen, I've had a great time. I'm not gonna lie. The eighth room is fucking awesome.
Yeah,
it's a great spot, man. It's rad. There's a lot of people that hate me, for owning it.
Why?
There's a lot of people that love me, and I embrace the love. And I'll tell you, I'll answer that question, but I'll tell you, my philosophy's always been this, right? There's the people that love you and the people that fucking hate you. If you have any middle ground at all, if there's any gray area in that middle, people just going, you're not going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have that push.
Mm-hmm.
I thrive on that push.
Yeah.
And, I think the reason that there's some hate out there is, you took a historical Nashville place that had been around for 33 years. By the way, everybody had the opportunity to buy it.
Oh, yeah.
It was sitting for 2 years.
If anybody's mad over that, that's bullshit.
Dude, I got death threats.
Really?
Not only that, but they doxed my daughter.
Oh, man.
They put her where she went to school, her license plate to her car online on Reddit. Fucking nerds. Reddit.
For what?
Because
Douglas
they were
Corner's
mad.
Great,
Listen, they were just mad. The Douglas Corner changed. Okay, so somebody could have bought it.
Yeah.
Buy it. Be proactive. Buy it. Do something.
Yeah.
I did. But again, like for the amount of hate that we've gotten, the amount of love and the amount of people that I've met there is just like, that fires me up. And I didn't buy it because I'm like some dude from California coming to Nashville to change, to be new Nashville and change the way things are done.
Sure. No, it actually reminds me of old Nashville.
I bought it because like I went and I made money.
Yeah.
And I came back to invest it here.
Yeah. No,
not in Phoenix, Arizona, or Scottsdale, or fucking Texas, or I came back here. I could have gone anywhere.
Yeah, well, the reason it reminds me of old Nashville is it's kind of like a community feel. It's like a cool, like, it's a lot of industry. it reminds me of the cooler places back in the day in Nashville. Nashville's changed so much, and there's a lot of like authenticity in there.
Man, listen, I appreciate that. When we went in, my wife and I, we designed the whole place ourselves. People are upset because we have wallpaper in there. We have expensive wallpaper. Go fuck yourself, get over it. Or go make some money and be able to buy your own expensive wallpaper if you choose to do that. Blow it however you want to blow it. Some people blow it up their nose. I blew it on wallpaper. So who cares? It's my money.
It's good wallpaper.
But they're angry with little things like that, And it's like, all we did was we looked at like the clubs that I really loved, all over the world, from like Max's Kansas City to the Rainbow Bar and Grill to the Viper Room to like the China Club, just different elements of things that I really liked. Yeah. And a lot of that stuff was like over the top when it opened. And it just so happened to age because it'd been around for 25 or 30 years.
Yeah.
So when we went in to design the place, that was kind of our bag of tricks, was to like, let's just like make this thing be like funky and an art piece and cool and a place where people can come in and they can vibe. Anybody can vibe with, Well, that's not the case, but it's been great. I love it. I love being in the community. The people that I've gotten to meet from opening this place is like, this is just such a great next chapter.
Yeah.
It really is. Like the amount of love that I have for the people that I get to see all the time. I made, we like my wife and I have made lifelong friendships in a very short amount of time.
That's what I was saying. The reason it reminds me of kind of older Nashville is because of the community feel.
Yeah.
It's a great space. You have live music. It's, Douglas Corner was old Nashville in the way it was just kind of a, historic place. But, when you're looking at, Nashville's lost a lot of its vibe. It's lost a lot of its identity in many ways. And so, you think about a place like yours that has a very unique identity. It's a one of one right there. Can't really compare it to other places in the city. Well, that's, Nashville was a very original place.
Yeah.
Art and, music and community. Right now there are some places, but there's not a lot of places to go where you can actually find those type of things. Go out to East Nashville, got a couple little spots out here that are vibey like that, but I think it's really good, man.
I appreciate that. I just don't think that, I'll just disagree a little bit with, I don't think Nashville's lost its vibe. It was a little big town when I first moved here and started. I'm sure it was way different 10 years prior to that. It's just growing up a little bit. Now, I think since COVID, there are a lot of people from LA and New York and Chicago and some Texas people and even Florida people that are moving into here, and it's growing. But like, I think that the personality of Nashville is like, it's still like, it's Nashville proud.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's lost its vibe in a way because, a lot of the people that I grew up with had to move out.
Yeah.
Because it's really expensive to live here. And I was raised without a lot of money. So, I could have never afforded to live in the city. And so when I say it's lost its vibe, one of the things that people love about Nashville is everybody's nice to each other. You're kind, respectful. It's got a very, you open the door for somebody. Yes, thank you. It's got that. And I think that as the city grows and you get more people from other places and the people that actually, have been here for me, I've been here 42 years. You see it's just different. It gets so that's what I mean by lose its vibe a little bit. The music
is different.
Yeah, the music scene back in the day. I mean, I graduated high school in '99, so I was a little after you, but it actually the if you look at like the country music scene, it still is very community driven, but there's all the lights now, and there's the social media, and I think that it just has a different feel that's not as humble per se.
But don't you think
before.
that's not just Nashville?
It's the world,
it's everywhere.
Yeah, correct.
Man, like the shit that I was seeing in China, was I opened 2 clubs in China, and it's mental. I mean, it's all avatar based. It's people not communicating. They're communicating through their phones. It's where we're headed if we're not careful.
Yeah.
Here for sure, because we're CCP dominated America right now currently, and we're heading towards communism fast. And people are so fucking on their phones constantly that they're not aware of what's really happening.
Man.
Because most people don't have a passport. Let's face it. They're not traveling, and they're not embedded in communism in different worlds. Maybe they are, but not enough. Because if the United States spent a month or 2 months in China, communist China, you'd start to see where we're going.
Yeah, they'd be like, "There's no way." Yeah, people they don't really see what's going on right now, and that's.
I think they're waking up real fast, though.
I hope that they're waking up. Some months I'm like, people are waking up, and then some months I'm like, I don't think they're waking up, and going back. So, why do you think thgoing to they're waking up?
Well, I think that what's happening now is like, just listen. I'm not going to comment or be insensitive on what's happening right now in the Middle East, but also I remember like what got us into the Iraq War, and it was a fucking lie. It was propaganda about babies being thrown onto the floor out of incubators and stuff like that.
That was the first Iraq War.
It was
actually. Remember that? Do you remember?
It was all lies.
It was the ambassadors. It was the ambassador from Kuwait. Her daughter spoke to Congress.
Yes,
and she gave a complete bullshit account, and that lied us into that first Iraq War. That's a good point.
So, like, now they're talking about beheading babies. Okay.
There's nothing wrong with
it's the emotional string that the governments are pulling on right now to go like, oh, we need to be in a secondary war. We know that Congress is now sitting there going like, well, let's just look at Ukraine, right? Bullshit. Ukraine's now going like, oh, we're starting to wave the white flags because guess what? There's no more money. No Speaker of the House. There's no they're not going to get any more money for Ukraine. Guess what? You're going to watch Ukraine fold in a matter of time.
I think they're going to keep giving them money though. That's the thing.
They have to pass it, number one.
I think that, but the Republicans have a giant appetite to pass it right now. Of course, the Democrats do. And what's interesting about that is
these are the rhinos though, and there's enough people in there right now that are rebels. Yeah, and that's why I'm pulling for the rebels.
Oh yeah,
I'm not for the Democrats or the Republicans because I think it's a uniparty thing that they're striving for right now. I think it's a one world government. I think that the CCP is knee deep and they probably own all of our politicians.
Yeah.
So we're moving towards communism, whether you like it or not. Yeah, that's where we're headed.
Yeah,
faster than what you know.
Well, the fact that TikTok is owned by the Chinese government too, it's like you think about
good
the
on
algorithm.
Trump for trying to ban that.
Oh yeah, we should ban TikTok.
Yeah,
I'm all for banning TikTok out of the United States. And I don't think most people realize really what it is, and it really does program our kids. It's programming our kids' minds. We don't even know the effects that it's going to have on these kids later in life. I mean, are you on the internet a lot, like social media?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram just for my my club. I run all that stuff, but I'm super isolated, man. Like I'm hyper focused on one thing and one thing only, and past that, I'm not searching and like,
It's easy to get addicted though. That's where I was going with it. Like
it's easy to.
You're not.
It's programmed to be addictive.
I mean, like I battle it because I have to be on there a lot. I mean, got 3 emails, different social media accounts on Insta, and I don't have a TikTok, thank God. I don't have a Twitter on purpose, but I mean, we're running ads. We have a lot of different stuff going, and it's difficult, man. It's like this is programming.
Yeah.
Not only other people's minds, it's got to be programming my mind too.
Well, I'm sure you've heard, and I'm sure you know the story. I don't know if people out there know this story, but like in China, TikTok is programmed at a very different ratio than what it's programmed here. So, for example, in China, TikTok rewards people for mathematics, for experimenting with engineering, with developing robotics. That's their TikTok. Our TikTok is designed for fucking idiots. Absolutely. Hey, go jump off a bridge, and if you die, we got it.
Yeah.
But if you don't die, cool.
Yeah. Let's see who can twerk the best.
That's programming.
Yeah.
And listen, man, China's not into this game for the next 10 years. They're in it for the next 1,000.
Yeah. They got
and that's plan. What we don't, we don't, like, our country's not looking at like the long game. Those motherfuckers, they're going 100, 200, 500, 1,000 years.
Yeah.
It's a plan.
Yeah. I mean, they're, I guess on the president or their leader, he's an interesting guy. I mean, think about what Mao did the last time. Mao killed at least 30 million people, probably more.
Though, that also like Tiananmen Square is completely wiped from the internet.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's complete censorship. And that's why it's amazing to me, people today that are cheering on the censorship.
Yeah.
When it's something that they don't agree with. They're like, oh, well, that's
betas.
That's dangerous.
Beta. Never probably lifted anything but a Twinkie.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
It's definitely weak
probably didn't grow up with dads.
Probably not. Probably not.
Still living in mom's basement. You know who you are.
And there's a lot of them. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, it's almost like the leading thought.
Oh, I know, man.
I've
seen it firsthand. Like I said, this Reddit thing. When I opened this club, man, they like. If you're doxing a 16-year-old child and you're telling the internet where, number one, that means somebody was outside of my house.
Yeah.
Grabbing my license plate numbers.
That's wild.
Putting it on the internet.
I have a daughter too. Come on, dude.
My daughters. My daughters.
That's just fucked.
Not just mine, my kids, right? It's all right. That's why like with social media, I say that I'm hated from opening the 8th room, and I am. It's because I'm not taking shit, man. I'm not going to take it. And if you think that you're going to hide behind a keyboard and just talk it up, I'm probably going to get online. I'm going to call you out, be like, hey, come on, let's have a conversation about it. We can film it.
Right.
We can do this. We can have a debate.
Yeah.
We can talk about why you hate me because I've got fucking Gucci wallpaper. We could do that all day,
Who cares though, man? Like that's so dumb though. I mean,
but it's when you start to take the action of now you're doxing, now you're talking about my child.
Yeah.
So now it's at a different level, and I think it's just that armchair quarterback kind of mentality of there's a generation of people now that have grown up only online. And you can look at even my wife, for example, she might get mad if I'm saying this, but even my wife, she could be mad at me and we can have a conversation like this and I'm going to get one thing from her. But if it's a text message, it's a different level.
Right.
And I just don't understand that. That level of society of that's kind of where we are, you know?
Because these guys haven't been punched in the face. I mean, really. I mean, anybody who's going to go and take a picture of your daughter's car and put it on the internet to try to hurt you through hurting your child, I mean, that person hasn't been punched in the face.
Yeah, like, how do you find, like, Zeke 001 exclamation point #3?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, and you have to brush some of that stuff off, you know? For me, I've always been the kind of guy, like, if I'm going to be confrontational, I'm going to be confrontational, like, at this level.
Sure.
Right to your face. If I got something to say, I'm going to say it.
Sure.
You know, if you choose to walk out that door and go get on your computer and then blast out all this stuff coming back at me, I mean, like, you know, who's the beta?
Yeah. Well, that's what, you know, I really do think that with guys not getting punched in the face, like you if you're behind a keyboard, you don't have those repercussions. And I grew up fighting. I used to love to fight. And you know, as I've gotten older, I might have been in the last 12 years. Well, I got 3 fights, 12 years. Most of them were 12 years ago. two of the 3 were 12 years ago. But I mean, if you look at where we're at now, you know, there is this internet social media culture where you can talk shit and there's not repercussions.
Right.
And, you know, it's really a false sense of security, though, because if you ever actually get into real life and you might bring that attitude over to the real life where you're just kind of running your mouth, you might get your face punched in sometime.
Yeah.
You know, someone comes and does that to my daughter, and I see him, like, we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not going to be
That's
pretty.
the whole thing, though, is how do you, you know, a lot of these people are hidden in shadows. And
You'll find them one day. I'm going to help you find that guy.
No, trust me, I'm having a meeting on Friday.
Okay, we're going to find that guy and see who he is. You're right. He probably is a little beta in his garage.
Yeah.
Just, you know, I'm going to show him about the.
Man, listen, I'm
room.
not like, I feel like my whole life has been probably one like you because of the position you're in right now and us having conversations like we're having. You're a champion. You like to champion people.
Sure.
You want to get to know people. You want the best for people.
Absolutely.
You want to help people. You know, that's been my entire career. It's been nothing but, you know, helping people and probably being owed a zillion favors.
Yeah.
Because of all that I've gone out and done for other people. But that's how it should be.
Yeah, no, baby, that is. And, you know, as we're talking about, as I was mentioning, like punching the guy for you, the reality is, though, I mean, what's important is being in service to people.
Yeah.
And when you have that energy, you know, it seems to always come back in some way or the other. I mean, you know, people that I helped years ago, man, they still want to come back and they're like, oh, you know, all of a sudden they're trying to pay back the favor, which I completely forgot about. I think that's a reason why a lot of people aren't happy because they're so focused on just doing for themselves that they're not actually out there giving themselves to others, as we're talking about, for free, getting their 10,000 hours in or whatever that is. And, I think that's actually one of the reasons we see the unhappiness too.
Well, the 10,000 is just before you start getting paid.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You don't look at the 100,000 that you're, you know, probably putting in within a time span of a career.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of giveaways, but I think that's inevitably what makes people human.
Yeah.
And feel good is the service that they provide for other people without wanting anything in return or expecting anything in return.
But yeah, that's what life is. Like what you're saying, that's what life is to me, man. I love that. The idea where you're giving and not expecting anything.
Yeah.
Because that's authentic. You know, that is to me what life is about.
Listen, you know, the vast majority of people are going to have to step away from their computers, take up meditation, learn the art of sitting in silence, learn the art of not feeling like after 35 seconds you need to touch your phone.
Yeah.
Or start swiping or checking something. You know, I believe that the quickest ability to contact God is being silent, and that's when you start to sharpen your intuition, and you start to really grasp on downloads of information that you weren't possibly ever thinking.
Yeah.
But they're just being communicated to you. And, you know, a God can mean anything to anybody. It's just the ability to connect to creation. And the universe is a learned thing, and it's also a ritual. It's something you have to practice. And if you get good at it, it becomes secondary.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it becomes secondary, it's just ingrained. And then you start living that way. Like I worked with this guy named Ron Browning. Ron is probably the biggest vocal coach on the planet right now. Everybody. He just works with everyone. He's phenomenal. He's here in Nashville. I started working with Ron Browning in, I think, 1998, and he completely changed my life. He and I were already kind of talking like Paramahansa Yogananda and spirituality and grounding and being connected and just many, many things. But the one thing that guy really taught me was the art of manifestation.
Yeah.
And sitting still and understanding that you attract what you're thinking and what your mind is putting out there. And I really do believe that, you know, we're in an epidemic right now of people that are so consumed with their phones that they'll never be able to get off of them. Therefore, it's striking God consciousness out of generations of people. It's just my thought, man.
What's your craziest or best manifestation story?
Man, I've manifested everything everything that's happened in my life has been a manifestation. Everything, even down to this, like buying this old Douglas Corner, kind of what it would look like. You know, I mean, listen, you know, there's a lot of bars in Nashville that I love. Not a lot of brands, a lot of bars. You know, I think that in a very short amount of time, we've created a brand.
It's
and
original.
I think it's just been through the art of manifestation.
Interesting.
Of sitting there going like, we know we're going in with a very different high level plan.
Yeah.
You know, also flying by the seat of your pants, man. You know, being a loose cannon is a really it's a really, I think, close being what was tethered, you know, to an architect up there. You know, flying by the seat of your pants is an art form. You know, you got to be either really connected or just really fucking dumb. And there's a fine line between the both of them, you know?
You know, I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm huge into manifesting. My craziest manifest story, when I was 22 years old, I was locked up and I had an 8-year sentence. I was serving 8 months, and there were no good books in jail. And we would get these John Grisham. Now they're like a pile of books you'd get to choose from, and mostly like John Grisham, which, you know, I'm not really into. And one day there was a book, you know, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And I'm like, oh, that actually looks like something I would want to read. So I go read it. and it has a bunch of exercises in it. And I had a friend that was on the cover of the Nashville scene. So I was like, let's see if this is real. If it's real, for the next 3 months, I'm going to do these exercises focusing on being on the cover of the Nashville scene. And so I did it every day, 2 to 3 hours a day. And, I still had my martial arts gym. I had opened my gym about 8 months after I got arrested, appealed to the Supreme Court, lost, finally win in a year and a half or so later. And so I kind of had everything set up for when I got out. And so doing these manifestation drills, let's call them, meditating every day, focusing on being on the cover of the Nashville scene. I get out of jail, and it was either the day that I got out or the next day. I walk into my gym, and sitting at my desk is a writer from the Nashville scene. And I was on the cover a month later.
Yeah. But it's asking, like, do you have it framed? It's
yeah, actually.
Clearly.
Yeah, we have it. We had it framed. Actually, I got a fine. I think it's in storage. But I'll show you the magazine, though. I do have that downstairs. But I had like blonde tipped hair. I was in my fight clothes. They call me the Gladiator. It was hilarious, And the writer was a guy named Matt Poole. Actually, I'd like to see what he's doing now. He was so nice to me because I was embarrassed about the arrest. Not a lot of people knew about it. I was partying a lot when I was younger, got into some wrong crowds or whatever, and he brought it up. He did his research, but he put it in the article in a way that was kind and not to try to embarrass me for what happened.
Yeah.
And it was actually that whole thing, the way he handled it as a writer and the way the Nashville scene handled it. And it was actually like a big relief because I didn't have to hide that anymore. I felt like I was 22 years old at that time when I finally got out. I was on the cover. But I felt like I didn't have to hide it anymore. I could actually, now everybody knows.
Yeah.
But it was put in a fair way that wasn't, trying to make me just look like, some idiot that messed up.
The cool thing about all that stuff is like, everybody fucks up. Everybody makes mistakes. It's how you rebound.
Yeah.
Everything is about how you rebound, how you even if you're just in a terrible mood and it's like, consumed all of your day, you can wake up and still be in a terrible mood, or you can just rebound it. You can figure out how to flip everything, man.
Yeah. Well,
there's an art to all of it though.
Yeah. We actually have a choice on how we react to things.
Wow.
So I think, when I got arrested, I could have gone down, the opposite road to where I was victimized by it. Now I had 8 years probation, 40 hours of community service a year for 8 years. It finally got cut down after a few years. But, all these things that I could have used to say, oh, the system is against me, or, I have all these things against me. Look how unfair this is. I'm never going to make it. I can't get a job because I'm a felon, or all those things. And I could have gone and done that. Or I could have done what I did and said, you know what, this is in my past. I got to stop partying like that. I got to get around a lot of good people. My buddy Quinn O'Sullivan, who opened Dan McGinnis, the managing partner of Dan McGinnis, with us. I went to Quinn and I was like, hey, man, you mind if we start hanging out? He was doing some good things and around good people. And he kind of brought me in at the time too. They were older. They're, 10 years older than me or so, started mentoring me in a positive way, and, took a different path in life. And, I think now in society, they're teaching people that, to be victims of their circumstances and those type of things, instead of taking personal responsibility and realizing that they can make a change.
Yep.
They can do better. And so, it's an example of something that, it was myself at the time, but anybody could have used to give reasons why they can't do things. But that would have just been a choice and kind of BS,
Well, yeah. I mean, instead you were seeking out the sages, finding the older people that you resonated with, that were doing things that you wanted to do and having the kind of money you want to have. And, you always have to do that. I'd still do it. And then I find now the people around me that are kind of gravitating towards me, that are kind of latching on a little bit and picking my brain. And I'm going like, oh, okay, I was there. All right. All right. It's all art.
It is, man.
You know, and it's just, I think at some point you get to, you know, there has to come like frustration. There has to come just shit circumstances. You know, you find yourself like praying to anybody that'll listen to you in a bathtub, you know, with cold water, because you have like whatever it is, man. Like, you know, there's those bottoms that you finally hit where you're like, I'm smarter than this, or I'm better than this. You know, it's not I'm smarter, because I don't consider myself to be a smart guy. Like, I have so many flaws. I just set myself up to really look like I'm smart, I guess.
Well, but you were just saying you're better than this. And I think when I tell myself that, it's that I should always do my best, because if we're always, you know, if we're doing our best to do our best, then, you know, the world's getting the best out of us, and we're giving the world our best, or at least the best that we can in the moment. We all fall short. And so I think the effort, you know, it's really about effort and consistency, not giving up. You know,
consistency is key.
It is. It is.
I'll tell you, man, my greatest, I don't know if it's a lesson, that I've learned in probably the past decade, that I've really applied over the past 5 years, is to not worry. I don't worry. I don't worry about anything.
Interesting.
I just don't. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of energy.
Are you religious at all? Or do you have like are you like a Christian or anything like that?
I mean, I was brought up in a Southern Baptist religion. I think that for me, religion morphed into spirituality.
Sure.
When I was really on a search, looking for, you know, answers. And I think that it's because I put myself into positions that a lot of people would never put themselves into, clearly. But it was like, I remember picking up books on like Buddhism, and the first book I ever got was, I was in Chicago at an airport, and these Hare Krishna guys came up and they gave me a book, and they wanted some money for the book. And so I gave them like $5 or whatever. And I read that whole book. And then I read a book on Buddhism. And then I read about like just everything, man. Hinduism. I delved into like Christianity. It wasn't until I was working somewhere here in Nashville, and I forgot. I don't recall where this was, but for Christmas, somebody came in and they brought everybody a book, and it was a manifestation book by Paramahansa Yogananda. It was, just a little tiny book, maybe like 50 pages. It was like manifesting miracles, or miracle manifestations or whatever. And I remember like people like throwing their different books away, and I would go in the trash can, I'd scoop them up and I'd grab them. And I read that thing front to cover for probably 3 years in a row. And I really just kind of like resonated with Paramahansa Yogananda and his view on all religion. It's encompassing everything. It's just a spiritual way. And that's when I really got into meditating and starting to learn. Like, I had really bad insomnia. So meditation was my first entry into like, okay, I'm gonna work on this insomnia, and I'm gonna start learning to shut my brain down. To this day, man, I still don't sleep a lot.
No.
3-4 hours.
Wow.
About all I need to recharge my battery. Sometimes it's longer. It depends on if I'm drinking or like what I'm like, how hard I'm out partying or it's circumstantial.
Sure.
But for the most part, like my battery operates when I'm pretty tuned in. It's 3-4 hours. My mother's the same way. My dad's the same way. But it was learning about like, what your body needs and what it takes to operate. So like for me, I've gone through lots of different diets, never been overweight, never been anything, right? Just had this like same build for my whole life. But for me, it was about energetically charging your body and what that takes, and eating McDonald's hamburger, like what that does to your body, how that makes you feel, like the weight that it carries. Like, what they say, if you ever want to be like a steroid raged, physically aggressive kind of person, eat McDonald's every day. Because it's kind of like, what they're feeding the cows and then how they take the cows down, and it's very violent. So I did a bunch of different like diet tests throughout my life now, starting with Peter Diadamo's Eat Right for Your Blood Type. I don't know if you've ever checked that book out. If not, man, I'll send you a copy of it. It's phenomenal. It's basically breaks down, it's 4 generations of his father, his grandfather, his great-grandfather, and he published the work. And it's breaks down what your blood type, whether you're an O positive, O negative,
Sure.
a B, A, B, etc., how your blood breaks down food. And then it gives you all the scientific research behind it. And then it tells you what is positive, what's neutral, and what's negative.
Interesting.
For your consumption. So I got into that first, and then it really, like, moving into that, like, it changed everything. Like, I got rid of allergies, I got rid of lots of things. And now I've kind of moved into the intermittent fasting. So I've been on that for about 3 years.
How are you doing it?
I love it.
Are you doing like what like 18 hours on?
Yeah, it's 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. So I usually eat around 3:30. It's 4:40 right now. So like I ate right before I came here. I won't eat again.
Okay.
Like one meal.
Yeah.
It's just an average meal. I usually pick and graze a little. I might go home tonight and have like a little bite of something. But what I've learned is that the food that you consume is it transfers into the energy, right? So if you're eating really clean and you stay like perpetually hungry throughout the day, your body is eating everything. It's consuming everything that's bad for you in your body. That's cancer. It's polyps. It's everything that's bad for you. It's eating it. So if you can stay like your optimal weight and you can eat clean, and it's just, you think better, you sleep better, you function, you have, like, I have more energy, like 50, man. Like I go hard. And I think it's just because of the way that I set myself up with my supplements and the way I eat. And
what type of supplements do you take?
Man, a lot of nutraceuticals. So NMN, NAD+, resveratrol.
That's good stuff.
Take like nitrous boosts. I've taken a human growth hormone, which is mild, but I do take that. Full transparency. I just find that like the HGH, if you stay on that consistently, it just keeps the vitality up, keeps your skin kind of glowing. it just gives you a youthful kind of thing. The NMN and the NAD plus and the resveratrol I learned from watching Joe Rogan's podcast with Dr. David Sinclair.
Yeah.
And that was the most fascinating podcast I'd ever seen, man. So I wrote down everything that David Sinclair said was in his daily regimen.
He takes metformin too, right?
Metformin.
Yeah.
So metformin, oddly enough, right? Do you take metformin?
I have. I'm not taking it right now.
Yeah. It's a great thing to take. So it's a diabetic
medication.
Yeah. It's for diabetes, right? If you don't have diabetes, from what I understand, is it goes in and it acts as like basically a cancer clearing agent, and it goes in and starts to wipe out any kind of.
Well, it regulates your blood sugar.
Right.
So I mean, it's one of those. The interesting study was they did a study with diabetic patients and those that weren't diabetic, but those that were taking the metformin, even if they had diabetes, they still live longer.
Right.
And so it does have a lot of anti-cancer effects. If patients actually, let's say they're on chemotherapy, I mean, there's some literature that shows that it could possibly help with the chemotherapy too, because it lowers the blood sugar. So that the chemo can go to the cancer cell rather than healthy cells. So I'm a big fan of metformin. It kind of messes my stomach a little bit, so that's why I don't take it.
I mean,
I haven't been taking it.
It'll clean you out.
Yeah. So it's that was some people get worse side effects with their stomachs. I'm a big gut guy, so
gut health.
Yes, big gut health.
What are you taking?
Well, I have a BioK liquid probiotic, and I have a kefir as well, and those two pretty much. And then I'm not really doing many now, but coffee enemas. You have your vein that goes to your liver, and it opens up the bile ducts in your liver. A coffee enema, your blood pumps to your liver once every 3 minutes, and in a 15-minute coffee enema, that would be 5 times. And so it opens up the bile ducts in your liver, and your liver is the filter for all the toxins and stuff in your body. So it pumps out those toxins, and then when you use the restroom afterwards, it pumps the toxins out. So have you ever heard of Gerson therapy?
No.
Okay, so Gerson therapy, it comes from a guy named Max Gerson, and his daughter actually founded the Gerson Institute in the late 70s. And actually, the hospital that we bought was the original Gerson Hospital. So we would go through about 300,000 pounds of raw organic fruits and vegetables every single year.
Wow.
Every one of our cancer patients would get 13 fresh pressed organic juices a day. So one every hour, carrot, apple, or green. And they would do 5 coffee enemas a day. And, that was, it's like the original diet therapy for cancer. But that diet, it's such a powerful detox. Like day 4, when I did full Gerson therapy, just to experience it, I had like a couple little warts fall off my finger. That was unexpected. I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, I was like the sweat was coming out, smelling all the toxins and those type of things. It's super powerful. But for gut health, I mean, what they're finding now, if you're to look at, I think 2013, MD Anderson was really the first to have kind of a groundbreaking study on the gut microbiome and cancer, and how the bacteria in your gut, there was a study that showed it was equal to, in the cancer regression, it was equal to a checkpoint inhibitor immunotherapy, which is actually won the Nobel Prize in 2018. But it was showing that it's that important. So your gut health can be as powerful as the most powerful immunotherapy cancer drug out there for cancer. So cancer patients should really be focusing on their gut health. We all should.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the most important thing to focus on if you're to pick one.
Well, I'm definitely on probiotics. I'll also do olive oil, lemon juice, and cayenne pepper.
That's great.
So when I wake up in the morning, it's the first thing I consume. It's the last thing I consume at night. So doing that, the liver and the pancreas are a couple of things that I've definitely been looking into,
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out like, okay, where's the weird kind of biohacking that people
Coffee
are
enema.
talking about.
It's the best. If you're willing to do that, it's the best. A specific gold roast coffee. But I actually could show you a paper that one of my old scientists that was working with us, an epidemiologist, wrote about it. He's got the mechanisms of action with it too. Really cool. Hasn't been published yet, so can't send it to anybody. But
hey man, so like next time we do a podcast together, we should do a
do a
should
coffee
do it
enema.
over coffee enemas.
We'll call it the Starbucks episode.
Stuck together.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, liver is super important. Gut. And how long you been focusing on your health? I mean, the Sinclair stuff's
Long
really
time.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. Sinclair, when that podcast came out 3 years ago, roughly,
Somewhere around there.
about that actually longer than that, because I started getting my metformin in LA from my doctor. So probably 4 or 5 years with the metformin, the Enemas, his regimen.
Yeah.
And then I take a bunch of other things, man. Like
Is the Enemas though? That's you take that instead of the NAD plus, or are you doing NAD plus?
no,
plus
the Enemas is the
precursor.
precursor for the NAD.
Yeah.
So I take them both at the same time,
Okay.
along with the resveratrol.
Nice.
And then I take like saffron, black seed oil.
Dude, the flax, man. Flax is where it's at.
Yeah.
If you ever do like you ever do any kind of like green juice powders or anything like that? Yeah. So if you put the flax in and the powder and then stir it lightly into a paste, it becomes like super bioavailable. Little hack for you.
Man, I've been doing a bunch of crazy stuff like black seed, castor oil, and then also the omega, and with the lemon juice and cayenne. My concoctions they're gnarly.
It's like rocket fuel.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's a hell of a concoction there.
Yeah, because there was a point in time, man, where kind of like my lifestyle is it's pretty wild.
Sure.
So you start to feel things, and especially when you're feeling things in here, going like, all right, something's off. Yeah, I'm probably drinking too much. Definitely not going to stop that. So what do we do? Start counterbalancing everything to equal out, the kind of life that inevitably like I'd like to live, which is healthy and fun.
Yeah.
And going hard.
Yeah.
So the flax, the castor oil, the lemon juice, the cayenne pepper, things like that started kind of coming into play. Probiotics been taken for a long time. What's wild, man, is I got into remember the Liver King?
Yeah.
I got into some of his vitamins, like his bone marrow and like his like the blood vitamins and stuff like that. Man, I don't even know how to describe my first like probably 2 weeks when I was like really on like all of my supplements plus like the Liver King stuff, and then all like collagen and everything else I take. But it's it's very expensive to keep all that up.
It is, man. It is.
But I think that when you're in your cycle and everything is working, your body's working like optimally, whatever how you say that word, it's working. There's nothing like it.
No.
There's just nothing like it. Being able to jump out of bed instead of rolling out of bed or hitting a snooze bar or whatever,
Have you ever done the NAD plus IV?
I haven't done that yet, but I go to Intravenous Solutions on West End.
Okay.
And just a little plug. They do the NAD plus, and I haven't had the time to go in there and sit because you have to dedicate. It's a couple of hours because it's a slow drip. I haven't done that yet, but I heard it's super next level.
Yeah, I do one every Monday. I'm in Mexico. We make it in our lab, so it's super fresh. It's like the stuff that we get, let's say in the U.S., which is still great, but there's a shelf life to it. So it might have been sitting, let's say it's expired at 6 months. Well, the NAD plus at month 3 doesn't feel the same as the NAD plus fresh off the press.
I'm sure.
So if you ever come down to Mexico and visit, we'll have to hook you up with some NAD plus.
Man, I'd love to do that. I'd love to check out the hospital, and I mean, like stuff like that fascinates me. Like longevity is always kind of like been something I've been into, like dieting and being strict with body and always working out, knowing what my key workouts are, which is at this point now it's walking.
Yeah.
That's what works for me.
Well, as long as you can get it in, at least 5 times a week.
Oh,
that's
I do it every day.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, it's key. It was funny. There was a study on leading causes of COVID death, or the leading reasons people died, and the number.
U.S. government is number one.
Well, yeah, that too, but number one was actually
it killed my friends. I can tell you that much. Going into the hospitals.
The number one was organ transplant. Of course, if someone had an organ transplant, they were the most likely to die of COVID. Number 2 was those that were not physically active.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3 was obesity. So which would make sense, 2 and 3, physically active and obesity. But, just being active is really key to our longevity. The sitting down all day, not moving around. And I'm guilty of this with all my work. I don't always take the best care of myself when it comes to exercise. But I think it's it's super important that we are active and we're breaking a sweat and that we're just moving. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen that? Man, there was the documentary on Netflix. It's like living to 100 years, or the green zones or the blue zones, or have you seen any of that?
My girlfriend and I watched, I think, the first 2 or 3. I haven't watched the whole thing yet.
Where like in these villages, people are like they're crouched down on the ground, like working on stuff and then gardening and getting up. And it's the movement and
community. So it's, being active, and they all had good communities around them.
Yeah.
People supporting them when they get older. So that's another big thing. As you get older, you're 80, you're 90, being around people that will help you out, that want you to live. Because if you have people around you that want you to live, you're going to want to live longer. That's the power of the mind.
Yeah.
Something that's very underestimated.
Humor.
Yeah, humor. That's another one, which I feel like we're losing in this world right now.
It's pretty dark.
Yeah.
I try and laugh like all the time. I try to make my wife laugh. My daughter has a really great sense of humor. She makes me laugh every day. Humor's it's so important,
Yeah.
It's an ingredient that most people miss. Because it's so easy to become cynical.
Yeah. It is easy to become cynical. I mean, especially when society's, the popular way of thinking, pop culture is teaching us to be victims.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really the problem. And then if you're funny, you might hurt somebody's feelings. So we can't hurt people's feelings these days, and
I think more of us should start doing that, though.
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, come on. Speaking of Rogan, like in my 20s, I spent a lot of time with Eddie Bravo and Joe. And Eddie is one of my best friends. He's like a big brother to me. And, being around them, you're constantly laughing. You're constantly joking. And it became, because I wasn't around comedy when I was a kid. And what you learn too, though, is when guys are that funny, they could make anybody look bad.
Right.
They're so good at that. But, that's not exactly what it was about. Well, that's not at all what it was about. And I learned a lot of like humility with that, because Joe and Eddie are some of the nicest guys to everybody around them, but they'll crack jokes. But I would see maybe somebody gets their fill and they would bring them back too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This isn't necessarily if they're performing. It's just in in person. It's like you constantly crack jokes with each other, and you
Yeah.
bring them but you know that it's not intentional. So you get kind of thick skin in a way because the jokes aren't meant to hurt you. They're meant to get everybody to laugh.
Yeah.
And
Busting balls.
busting balls.
Yeah.
God forbid we bust some balls these days. Now we just chop them off. It seems like
That's where it's heading. Unfortunately, man.
we're not busting balls anymore. We're chopping them off, and they don't have them anymore.
God forbid they don't grow back.
They don't grow back. Yeah.
No. Oh man, it's a generational thing, man.
Yeah.
It's getting I don't know, man. Like again, just reverting back to what we were talking about earlier. If you haven't been to a communist country, you should go and spend some time there and really see what's happening and figure out if that's what you want. I mean, I'm like, that's what you want. Go to a communist country and live there. Let us be, But listen, there's a reason, man. They're after us. We're the last free nation on the planet.
Yeah.
We're a superpower, and blows my mind that like people like George Soros and guys that are like betting on the demise of countries aren't arrested by military and considered like terrorists, but they're all after us.
Yeah.
And it's when you look at like, I think what's cool right now though is like when I say people are waking up, I think they are waking up because just like even like looking at today, like Steve Scalise not getting those votes, not happening. Those are people going like, that guy's a rhino. He's a uniparty, not having it any longer. Let the fucking country shut down. Like,
Well, it's happened a bunch in the last 10 years. How many times has the country shut down?
Look at the numbers too, man. Like, it doesn't hurt anybody. Like, it doesn't hurt our military. And that's where they're using propaganda, like, constantly against us. It's like, it's going to hurt this, it's going to hurt that. No, it's not. Nobody's not going to get paid.
Yeah.
What it's going to do is going to stop you from making really terrible decisions and, sending $8 billion to, this country to start this other war and to do this and to do that. And it's just, it's ridiculous. But there's enough people now that I think are tuning out of mainstream media and looking at like things like X or Twitter, Rumble, where they're starting to get information or doing their own research and starting to independently learn that like, we've been under a spell for a long time.
Yeah.
And, it's time to wake up and get out of this thing and, really kind of like reshape what we're going to do and how we're going to do it and let America continue on for the next, century, or it's going to be over in a very short amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is a chance that we lose our country. I think that is a possibility. But I also think we do have a lot of resolve, and we've been through a lot, especially the last 3 or 4 years.
If we lose it, it's not coming back.
Well, I mean, my thought is we could have, if we were to lose it, we could break up into sections, so you have like, let's say the Southeast, the Northeast, California could be on its own.
Fine with that.
Yeah. But I think that is what could happen. I hope it doesn't, of course. But, the hard part is overcoming the algorithm, because the algorithm's dividing us so much. It's pumping, it has us in these echo chambers.
Yeah.
And the echo chambers are just feeding this narrative that isn't even true necessarily. And so, how do you get people to wake up and realize that none of this shit's even real? This division's made up.
I think it's happening, man. I do. I think that's happening faster and faster every day, especially like, what we're seeing now, like, because if you're on Twitter at all, you have no choice but to see what's happening over there right now. But what you're also seeing are videos that have happened in other countries that they're splicing together and then moving in. And we're in a totally different type of informational war.
Yeah, people are seeing the propaganda. So here's a question. I have not followed this part as closely, but were you saying earlier that when they were talking about chopping the babies' heads off, that might not be true?
I mean, I can't speak to that.
Okay, I don't know if you saw something that showed that it was like propaganda.
I know that, what's his name? The guy who's like the resident, Biden. He came out today and said that he saw video on that, but they lie every day.
Yeah,
openly lie every single day and are caught every day lying. All we can go back to is like that was it 91 or 92, the Iraq, that girl giving the speech in front of Congress that led us into a decades long war, and it was all fake.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. We sent over $8 billion, just a few months ago over there, and now there's a whole war. We're funding both sides.
Yeah. Well, we always have.
We always have.
Seems like. Yeah, and I read an article where the weapons from Afghanistan ended up in Palestine.
Yeah.
And when I saw the story on the kids, heads getting chopped off, I believe it. I mean, it's awful, and it's one of the most horrible things that you'll ever hear. But in the back of my head, I was questioning. I was like, okay, I believe it for what it's saying, and this is and 80% that this is what happened. It's the worst thing ever. But in the back of my head, I was like, okay, well, is this propaganda? That's how I look at everything now. I'm like, I believe that. That's a big, bold statement.
They're savages.
Yeah.
They're savages that are going in and doing what they're doing. They're savages.
Yeah.
You can't remove the savage. They're savages, right? I think that we're infiltrated here in our country now with savages.
Well, tomorrow is supposed to be
I know.
a crazy day, possibly. They asked for an uprising.
Yeah.
And
spill the blood of Americans.
I mean, here's the thing: the Hamas, they can all die.
Yeah.
We should want to get rid of them all. It's complicated though when you talk about all of the different wars that we've been lied into. So, and it's kind of sad.
Every war.
Which one have we not been?
Every single weapons of mass destruction that I can remember.
Afghanistan.
9/11.
Osama was in Afghanistan. Ended up in Pakistan. Well, 9/11's a whole other crazy one. I mean, that's
what started to take our all of our rights away as citizens. Though
the Patriot Act should have been called the Act to repeal the Fourth Amendment.
Not a Patriot Act at all.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So you have all these. You think about Gulf of Tonkin. Why did we go fight in Vietnam? I mean, my dad was drafted. What?
Nobody can answer that question.
No. So yeah, when I see the stories, and I do believe them, what's going on right now, of course, I think Hamas is a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
They obviously invaded. There's a lot that's true, but in the back of my head, when I see certain certain things that are just awful, I wonder if we're being fed extra stuff to get us to react a certain way.
I mean, pull the emotional strings of the Americans, and
how many times does it happen? Now,
we can rape them of all the taxpayers. Dude, listen, man, they're writing checks right now that they can never cash. Never. They're writing checks on the backs of my my daughter's children's children. Like, we'll never catch up. Like, we're essentially bankrupt. Like, this country's, you know,
33 trillion in debt, and it's not getting any better, and we keep getting
not
lied.
when you're writing $8 billion checks.
Here's a other thing I look at. You know, we're talking about lowering the deficit and, you know, not spending as much. But, you know, on the Republican side, and I give my little air quotes here, they don't ever want to talk about cutting military spending.
No.
It's like the thing you're not allowed to even consider or say. But, you know, that's with them knowing that hundreds of billions of dollars have just gone missing and they can't account for it.
Yeah.
And it must be nice to go and lose hundreds of billions of dollars, but have, you know, part of the political establishment talking point is you can't cut any military spending. And you got all these guys like, yeah, you can't even talk about that. You talk about that, you're anti-American. It's like, whoa, not that. But have you been able to see where this money's going?
No, nobody can.
No, you don't know where it's going.
Not only that, but if you think of it like in realistic terms, right? Let's just break it down for everybody that's watching, because everybody's got a credit score. Everybody, right? You go get your Macy's credit card. You got $1,000 limit on it. You charge $1,000 up. You pay $60 down. Fall into hard times. You know, pay $100 down. You fall into hard times. Can't pay your credit card bill for a couple of months. You just don't have that extra $20 or $40 to spend on it. Guess what? Your credit score is going down every month over month. Then guess what? You're not going to be able to rent a house or an apartment. You can't get a car. You can't get another credit card. You can't get a loan. You can't get nothing. How come the government, who's supposed to be the representative of us, can sit there and go like, oh, we'll just print more money?
Well, technically not the government doing that. It's the Federal Reserve.
Right. But the government is spending with the Federal Reserve in their back pocket, printing.
Yeah.
And there's no end in sight.
Right.
So at some point, you know, I mean, listen, dude, I think that the United States, whatever LLC is bankrupt. And I think that we're about to see some real interesting things happen in the next couple of years.
Yeah. What do you think's going to happen next couple of years?
Man, I can't like regurgitate the whole story, but you know, under the Queen, you know, we borrowed a lot of money during the Civil War. Warren might be able to like help with this, but we borrowed a lot of money for the Civil War, so we were in debt. So essentially, we turned over our corporation, like the Queen. They held onto this corporation, right? And when Trump got into office, there was a whole stink about him stepping in front of the Queen when he met with Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, yeah.
But that was a signal in the comms to all like the nerds that it's done. He's basically said, yeah, we're no longer under like this corporation. We're bankrupting the United States LLC, right? And we're moving back into the Republic. And I don't know if you notice this, man, but Trump still acts as if he's president. He talks as if he's president still, because he says this is his second term and he's moving into his third term. He calls Biden the resident. There's a lot of weird things going on right now. I'm not a conspiracy theorist guy, but at some point, like, all the shit that's happening, there's no coincidences. It's happening in real time at this point.
Yeah.
Like, you're seeing things are moving so fast. You know, we went from peace in the Middle East and zero wars to end wars to everybody screaming death to this tyrant, this dictator, to now we're in two massive wars that there's no end in sight. And we're moving into World War III.
Yeah, that's where.
And it's going to get nuclear, I do think.
Man, I sure hope not. I mean, then it's all over for all of us. You know, then it just wipes out everything if it goes nuclear.
I do think that it's going to get. I think it's going to get there. I'm not saying that it's going to be like all bombs pushing. We're pushing red buttons. I do think that there's going to be like some really scary things that happen. I mean, dude, look at we're a year away from an election cycle right now. Look how mental it is. Well, we're in another war now,
dude. If you think back just in 2020, you know, January. I didn't think Trump was going to get reelected. My thing to my business partners, my parents, I was like, "There's no way they're going to let him back in. He's caused too many problems. It's just not going to be possible." And then January came around, economy was doing great, everything was going great, and I was like, "Well, I guess I was wrong. It looks like he's going to be reelected." And then mid-March, the world shuts down with COVID. And what are the odds of a random virus catching fire during the election year of probably the most controversial president in history?
Yeah.
And the economy goes down, and really that's what lost him that election was the COVID stuff. I mean, it was the COVID turmoil. He couldn't just.
Or did it?
What's that?
Or did it?
Oh yeah, well, I mean,
a lot of weird shit, man. Pipes bursting and
I don't believe
when you shut down elections and you say, oh, we're stopping counting, and then everything changes. It's just weird, man.
Well, here,
I'm for either one because everybody's there. It's all corrupt. But I tell you what, I am for. I am for the outsider. I am for the guy that's sitting there going like calling them all out. Like all of his debates were mental, man. That guy was a thug. I mean, he was so hard going on Hillary Clinton, and even talking about like taxes. I'm using the same loopholes as you.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone, I'm in the same boat. Yeah. Calling everybody out the way that he's done, man. And then the thing is, it's like, you know, they're making this guy out to be like this horrible person, but we're all bad. All of us, we have our faults. This motherfucker was calling everybody out. He didn't let nobody go, man. He called them all out. And the thing is like, I think everybody's starting to go like, oh, wow, maybe he wasn't that bad.
Oh, well, at this point, I mean, it's interesting seeing.
Because, you know, Biden ain't running shit.
No,
he can't even order mashed potatoes without like a handler. I mean, like you got like it's Obama running everything at this point. Like his crew of people.
I would love to know who actually is running.
Well,
the show.
Know, you've seen that. You've seen the interview of Obama sitting there going like, if I could run another term and I could be in my basement in my tracksuit.
It makes me think. Blah. I just don't know. So like, there's a lot of stuff. You know, like if
nobody knows, but you can speculate.
Yeah,
and you can probably get really close to thinking who's.
Yeah, but okay,
who's in control?
Let's look at the deep state, though.
God, we're gonna get killed, aren't we?
No, this is all good. You look at the deep state, like who is it? You know, who are they? Because we know that it exists.
Yeah.
They know that they really are. I mean, they have everything set up between the Patriot Act,
BlackRock.
You know, the National Defense Authorization Act. When Edward Snowden came out, he let the world know that they were doing mass surveillance on everybody, including American people. Nobody cared. And what is that? That's a signal to the deep state.
Yeah.
That they, you know, that the public is too weak to even protest something like that.
Julian Assange.
Yeah, well, I
he's
mean,
under a prison somewhere, man.
Can you believe what's going on with Assange?
Well, and those girls, they came out and they were like,
there's
no rape.
Well, so
it was like I know the story.
Yeah, the girls that came out, he got arrested for, it was a sexual assault because the law was you couldn't have sex, unprotected sex without a condom, or you couldn't have sex without a condom without special permission or some weird caveat in the law.
And they said a condom broke.
something like that. Yeah. They got him, man. They got him. And that shows you. Then I read an article that they were actually CIA agents. I don't know who they were. All I know is it was not fair to him.
Yeah.
And that's what
he's still in prison. It's just mental, man. But that's what happens when you start exposing.
Yeah, that is.
And that's the deep state. It's like you got to look. It's like J.P. Morgan. It's BlackRock. It's all these things. Like you look at like Mike Lindell and My Pillow.
He's going bankrupt, I heard.
He's American Express. Everybody's pulled everything from him. He's not even bankable. Yeah, you have to Venmo.
The fact that you can do that in a supposedly free society, man.
It shows you we're not free.
No.
And it also shows you that we've been occupied.
Yeah.
And it's
the powers that are pulling the strings are showing their power for those that are watching right now.
And that's why I say people are waking up, because they're blatantly
it's
open.
how do you not see it?
Yeah.
And almost everything. I mean, even the media. I wasn't a Trump guy, and I thought, I didn't like his rhetoric, liked a lot of his policies, but the entire time they were attacking, I'm like, this is very unfair. Like there is a double standard. And, I remember at first with the whole Russian hoax, what it was in the end. At first, my thought was, there's no way that they would be coming at him this hard with all these news outlets if there wasn't something there.
Yeah.
And then it turned out that the Steele dossier was
funded by the Clintons.
Yeah. And it was given, I believe, from Russia.
Yeah.
So, it's like, what? The campaign, the Clinton campaign paid for the Steele dossier. Like, what is going on here?
And it's all proven.
Yes.
And everybody's still like, oh, he was a Russian agent. And, like Hillary last week came out and was like, oh, he's with Russia. It's
She said the same thing about Tulsi Gabbard, though. When Tulsi was running a few years, and it was disgusting because she puts that out there, and that's how the media takes hold of it, and she becomes that. And that's how you know these people are evil. They're not good people, man.
That's one thing that we're missing right now are consequences. You got every judge is bought and paid for. Every corporation's bought and paid for. The banks are bought and paid for. Everybody's bought and paid for, and they're all corrupt. That's the deep state. That's what everybody's talking about is deep state, right? And the thing is, it's not all of them. It's the heads. It's the tops, right? And therefore, we outnumber, like the good guys outnumber the bad guys. Yeah. It always does. But there's got to start being consequences, man, because otherwise we're never getting out of this. It's not happening.
Yeah, no.
Not like we can come in, Trump can come back in with America First attitude, or we could have another Trump guy come in, or somebody that's going MAGA, which is now a terrorist thing to say, right? Make America great again is a terrorist slogan. We could have somebody come in that loves our country, that wants to reduce debt, bring energy back, bring our country back into like building and creating and the thing is, man, it's so rigged.
Yeah.
There's so many guys that are bought and paid for, that unless we bring in harsh consequences, nothing's gonna change.
We have a justice system, though. That's the thing, which thankfully,
which is corrupt.
Yeah, I mean, but it's the people that have to go through the justice system. I also fear the mob. The mob mentality, because if we can do it to them, they can do it to us.
Well, they're doing it to us.
I mean, Julian Assange is under the jail, as you said. They're getting
look
more
at all
and
the
more
J6 guys. I mean, that are sitting in prison right now.
Garbage.
for trespassing.
Yeah.
I mean, Owen Schroyer from InfoWars is going to prison for speech, political hate speech.
Really,
He's going to prison in 2 weeks. I mean, like look at like they're debanking everybody that's in their path, man. Like Trump, you know, they're aiming to put him in prison.
Yeah, put him in prison, take away his
I mean, don't think
license.
that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not going to be under the microscope here real soon, because you know he just announced what his independence, or he's running as an independent. Don't think that they're not going to go after that guy. I mean, you know, he's got 2 assassinations under his family's belt already.
Yeah. What do you think, RFK Jr.?
I mean, I've met him. I met him in L.A. and he was a very nice guy. I mean, I have a lot of my buddies that aren't Democrats or Republicans, which I'm neither. I'm fully independent. You know, if anything, I've been a libertarian for a long time, and now I'm being forced into becoming a nationalist because I believe in our country, and I don't give a fuck about the countries outside of ours. I think we got to take care of ourselves first. It's just like having a baby. You know, you want that baby to grow up, be strong. If you're fucking taking care of like 6 other babies over here that aren't yours, and you're neglecting your child, you got problems. You got problems on both ends, right? So with him, I have a lot of friends that are Democrats that are moving towards him because they think that he's, you know, I don't know, man. I think he's very smart. I sat through a 3.5-hour lecture on vaccines in Los Angeles and listened to him speak on vaccines.
How long was this?
This was right before COVID, so 4 years.
So it was before COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Right before I left.
Yeah, he was going hard in the paint.
And he's smart.
Yeah, he is.
And intelligent, and I like him. I just don't think that. I mean, I think he's going up. I just don't like. They don't want him to run because he's going to run as an independent. He's going to pull votes from the Democrats. So
he might pull votes from, like, for instance, if it were anybody but Trump running, I think he would pull votes from the Republicans.
Possibly.
I mean, because I would go and vote for Robert Kennedy at that point. I'm not a Republican, but I mean, I'm somebody that would probably vote for Trump.
Yeah.
At this point,
I think within the cattle that we have right now, there's only one motherfucker that's alpha that can go in there and that I think will do exactly what they say they're going to do.
Yeah.
That it's not going to be Hillary.
I think they're setting Newsom up right now because, you know, he went on, he's been doing like a TV tour. Actually, he was on Sean Hannity. He's doing a debate with DeSantis.
He absolutely ripped DeSantis apart.
Yeah.
I mean, but also Newsom knows, like, my wife left her home state because it's destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
Newsom did that.
Oh, yeah.
Look at San Francisco. He started there, destroyed that. LA, destroyed it. Destroyed it, man. You can't be a small business owner and live in Los Angeles.
No way. There's no way.
You know, San Francisco, you know, they have apps for feces on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
That if you see poop on the street, if you geotag it, they'll come clean it up. That's where people are. He allowed defecation on the streets. He allowed people to shoot up on the streets. He opened it up to homeless people.
Yeah.
If anybody thinks that Newsom can come and like fix this country, I mean, dude.
Oh, he's awful.
I'm out.
He's awful, man.
I'd have to start figuring out where I'm going.
Newsom scares me more than Biden. He really does, man.
Yeah.
I feel like Biden is.
He shouldn't scare anybody. He's mashed potatoes.
Yeah, but bro, he is manipulative. He truly doesn't have the best interest.
No, he's corrupt
of the country, and you know, he's got a really good smile. So you think about how he's acting. It's like, he really worries me. He's one that you know, and he's a wild card because we don't know how bad he's going to be. We know how bad Biden is. He's already really horrible.
Yeah,
but I mean, it could be a lot worse. I mean, it's pretty bad, but it could be a lot worse. And Newsom scares me because he's young, he's smart, he's just like ready to just fuck us up.
I just don't think that anybody is gonna be able to start looking past the Nancy Pelosi and the Gavin Newsom
Relationship?
Nope, not that. But the way that they treated everybody during COVID. You can't do this, but I can.
Yeah.
And it's on video and everybody's seen it. You know, those people are all losing power, man. And the thing is like, I think what we're witnessing right now is like the primal scream from a power that is completely being wiped out. They're at their end of their ropes. They're screaming. They're not going to go down without a fight.
No, of course
it's going to get really, really ugly. But I think that we're in a I don't know, man. Like, again, I'm not a conspiracy theory guy. I do my own research. I like to look at things. I like to stay up at night and read shit and dig. I like to be around people that dig. Mm-hmm. I like to talk to people that dig. I think that we're in a very interesting time right now. I think that in the next couple years, we're going to see some things that we've never witnessed and we will never see again in the history of our lifetimes. Yeah. I do. I think that I'm not saying there's sting operations happening, but I fully believe that we're in a global military operation, and that we're sided with. I think we're probably sided with the big power players and eliminating this deep state because people are falling.
Well, I mean, if we are in this big operation, then they know all of us who were not vaccinated. So, that's one potential problem for us, clear blood people, pure blood.
I don't think it's a sting operation for what you're thinking. I think it's a sting operation in the best interest of the world. Really? Yeah.
Wow. Well, that would be great. I'm ready for that.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of interesting people out there. Saying things. And I think there's a lot of comms being dropped every day between like General Mike Flynn, what's Trump's guy, Dan,
who the
his PR
blonde hair guy?
No, his head of like does all his social media. Scrivino.
Oh, okay.
Whatever his name is. Anyway, there's comms, man. Even between Putin and Xi. I don't know, man. I think that my philosophy is there's like United States military, Russia, China, and North Korea are pretty powwowed up, and they're handling business right now.
Wait, you think who is?
Russia, China,
and
North Korea,
United
States of America.
You think that they're together?
Mm.
Really?
That's just my personal opinion.
Wow. I mean, North Korea is batshit, though.
Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, batshit.
Think of his relationship with Trump.
I mean, he was he called him Rocket Man. It was pretty funny.
Trump also crossed the.
He did. He crossed. I mean, he shook his hand.
Yeah.
But
write each other letters.
What's that?
Write each other letters.
I mean, if you got a maniac like Kim Jong-un,
maniac though, only in the terms of what our media tells us,
like what the media portrayal is.
Yeah,
yeah. I guess it comes down
communism. Yeah,
I guess it comes down to what do you really like? How much of what we're given is true in the media. I mean,
I don't think any of it is.
yeah, I mean, you're at the point where you've given up on
I don't believe any of it.
I haven't given up on it completely.
Like, who do you listen to that you're in with?
I don't listen to anybody or any
What media outlet?
Yeah, I don't. So I'll go to and now it's so for 20 years, I will go to Drudge 30 times a day.
Yeah.
Drudge changed. I don't think Matt
Big
Drudge
time.
is running it anymore.
Nope, he's not. And it changed about 4 years ago. It went from being,
It was dramatic.
oh my God, like front page every day to like, okay, sold out.
Yeah.
Something weird.
It's weird. It's not Drudge.
They killed Andrew Breitbart. I mean, it's like, Tucker's probably like the closest thing that we have to a Breitbart currently. And I would imagine he's got a red dot on the back of his head.
I'll tell you
currently.
who I really like. Glenn Greenwald, Matt Taibbi,
Yeah.
both of them. I mean, Greenwald's that's a bad motherfucker right there.
Yeah.
He let out, he broke the Snowden story, of course, but listening to him go at it with the mainstream because
Taibbi's great, man. I mean, he broke the Twitter files.
I know.
And he was not a Trump guy at all.
No, neither was Greenwald.
Yeah.
He's not. Well, he's still not. They're still not Trump guys.
I know, but they're reporting on like
They're actually being reporters.
yes,
It's like journalists.
and that's fine. Like you don't have to be pro anything, this or that, but like just like let's talk facts. Like journalism is dead.
Yeah. It's gone, man. It's completely gone. And so what do I really listen to now? I mean, I'll dance around all the mainstream. I mean, like yesterday, what did I go to? ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, Fox News, Drudge, YouTube. I think I went. That was probably my dance, and more Drudge. Even though Drudge, it's obvious propaganda now. In the spin, it's still you can get a lot of information from there. A lot of different sites.
Yeah, but the first six you said were it's Mockingbird Media.
Oh, I know. Hey, well, that's why. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all of the, all of the call the normal.
The great guys are like podcasters, guys that are sitting down and having conversations with really smart people.
Well,
and
yeah,
like
Rogan, Jordan Peterson.
Peterson's great. I like Tim Pool every now and then.
Tim Pool came down to our hospital not too long ago.
Oh wow!
And did stem cells. But yeah, I love Tim. We've got who else is big out there? Paul. What is his name? Paul. Patrick David. Who am I thinking of?
Patrick Bet-David.
Yeah, Patrick Bet-David. That guy's a bad motherfucker.
Yeah.
They're
X-22 report.
Yeah. So like
David
certain,
Adams.
Like, I mean, I even checked out InfoWars yesterday.
Yeah.
So for context, I mean, it's like a little bit, yeah. But I want to know what's going on in the mainstream. I also want to know what's going on in the not mainstream. I also listen to podcasts, but you only have so many hours in a day too when you're working. So, I understand what the mainstream media is, but I also don't watch it and think it's all a lie. I think that I can like disseminate pretty well when how much of it's spin. And with the war stuff, I mean, like I said, I'm like 80% what they're saying is real, and I'm like 20% like I don't know if I believe this.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I think I'm more pessimistic, I guess, because I look at it and go like, okay, yeah, we're at war. Okay.
Yeah.
Fact.
Yeah.
So there's your 50%. The other 50%, everything else is bullshit that you're going to say. Just because it is. They've just proven themselves to be. They're bought, they're paid for, they're sold. They're not journalists that are getting behind the desk, that are able to free and willingly just go with their gut and say what they want to say. They're reading off a teleprompter.
That's
and
true.
It's scripted.
Yeah.
And for the vast majority of all the networks, you can line them up and it's just the same talk, So
Because it's the same
when they
talking
say
points.
we're at war, yeah, we're at war. Now let's bring on the president. Okay, well, 50% false, fake. That's what I loved about Trump, man. He coined that term, fake news. And now guess what? 6 years later, we're sitting there going like, fake news, man.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's propaganda. It's wild, you know, because when I was in China, and I spent a lot of time in China, they had one American TV channel. I'm sorry, two. One was news, it was CNN, but it was so drastically altered and so like communist leaning spin. And then they had a movie channel, and the movie channel was all 1980s like action movies like Die Hard and Terminator and stuff like that. And that was it. That's all you could watch, right? You flipped on like the news, and you're just sitting there going like, I'm watching communist Chinese propaganda television, and it's called CNN. And it's just the way that they spun it. Like, you didn't know any of the anchors. It wasn't like primetime people, but it was like, that's all you could get news-wise, right? And you come back and you just start seeing everything so much different. You're like, it's all bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could be right, man. You could be right. You know, I still have some hope, but at the same time, you know, whether they're telling the full truth or not, we know that they're largely, you know, full of shit at this point.
Yeah.
How much, what level we're debating. Like, you think they're all full of shit. I'm like, mostly.
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's okay. I mean,
like I said, I think that when they go on TV and they say we're at war, I think that's true.
Yeah.
That's all the truth that I think that they're basically giving us. Yeah. Everything else is propaganda. That's just kind of where I'm at. You know, what I have faith in is humanity. Mm-hmm. I have faith in the Constitution. I don't have faith in people any longer that say we're a democracy.
Yeah.
No,
well, we're not a democracy.
We're a republic.
Yeah. But that's a terrorist thing to say. It was actually that the FBI put out a report that if you say that we're a republic, that we could possibly be terrorists.
Well.
So you wonder who the terrorists are?
I would imagine. Well, yeah, but that's the whole thing, though, right? When you're at war, you project everything onto your opponent, right? So, like, if you follow anything that Meghan McCain does, she's a vile creature.
Yeah, she?
If you follow her on Twitter, she's nasty. She uses words like terrorist and hate and like death, and like she's just vile.
Yeah, she's like her dad.
Yeah, exactly. But projecting again, and what it is like they can sit there and go like, I'm the terrorist, right?
Right.
But I'm going to call you a terrorist.
Yeah.
You know, because you're not saying what I want you to say. So you're a racist, you're a terrorist, you're a xenophobe, you're this, you're every name in the book. Right. And it's like, I can't just love my country.
No.
You know? Because I tell you what, man, it's Democratic kids aren't going to war. No. It's all the Republican children that are going to fight.
That's probably right. I haven't looked at the statistics, but I can't imagine.
Pretty close.
A Democrat
Lindsey Graham
kid.
still lives with his mother.
What?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
But I'm pretty sure that he's in a basement somewhere, you know, not doing good stuff.
Yeah. Well, man, it's been almost 3 hours, so we've been going at it for a while. But maybe
time
we can
to change
do it.
into our bathrobes.
That's right. Now maybe we can do it again one day.
I'm in,
a lot of
man.
fun talking to you.
I hope this doesn't get us, banned from seeing each other.
No, it won't. It won't. We can push even harder if we need to.
All right. Got an Amber Alert going off on my phone right now.
There you go. Jason, thanks, man, for the
you
podcast.
got it.
Appreciate
Thank you, Ed. It's been fun.